for all of us. It's about predicting where the consumer is going and getting half of it right.
One of the things we want to do is create ads that don't suck.
Embracing change creates great possibility.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today.
Today on the show, I've got KoAnn Skrzyniarz, CEO and founder of Sustainable Brands Worldwide. Today on the show, KoAnn and I talk about the goals for sustainable brands and their aims as an organization and all the things that they do, from events to education to writing to content to research to getting companies together and hosting them to share practices and thoughts and thinking around sustainable businesses and sustainable brands. We also talk about the opportunities and the threats to current brands and marketers today. I hope you enjoy this conversation with KoAnn. Well, KoAnn, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so delighted to be here.
Let's start with your background and your path, if you will, in starting sustainable media, but then the Sustainable Brands event series.
Sure. It's a long story. I'll try to be brief. Generally speaking, I studied a diverse set of things in college: communications and psychology, music and Bible. Funny set of things. Didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. Was really interested in advertising. Tried to get a job in advertising out of college and ended up landing at a business-to-business media company where I actually worked for 18 years and developed a lot of my business knowledge. The company that I fell in to work for was a third-generation family-owned trade media company that was operating in the natural resources markets, primarily fishing and the forestry and sawmill industry. And they were doing about $20 million in revenue and had 80 people working for them. And over the course of the time that I was there, we had the opportunity to grow the business to $1 billion, expand into many, many markets, and I had the opportunity to begin to explore launching various brands in various market sectors, and really ultimately I became a senior vice president of the company, helped the company really think its own company brand, and so lots of experience launching brands, growing brands, and building teams. And underneath all of that, really understanding the value of purpose as a driver of profitability. One of the things that I did, which is the thing that I discovered actually after I left the company, the founders of this family-owned business ultimately sold midway through my career there to a big British conglomerate. And as a result of that, ultimately the culture changed and the strategy, the business changed, and I opted to leave. In that window of time after leaving, I looked around to try and really understand what it was I knew that was helpful. And one of the things that really popped out to me was that this assumption that I had based on my growing up in business years, that everybody understood the power of purpose to drive growth in business, was misfounded, and actually that was not a common understanding or practice. And so I ended up starting a management consultancy that was focused on that ambition. And along the way, during my consulting years, I landed a gig with a company here in Silicon Valley that had Anita Roddick, who founded The Body Shop, and Paul Hawken from Smith & Hawken on the board. And I think you, given your degree in sustainable enterprise, might recognize the role that those two people played in helping us understand the significant impact that business plays in healthy unfolding or not unhealthy unfolding of our world. So they were a big influence for me. And then I met Bill McDonough in 2002, right after he published Cradle to Cradle Design, and I just had a massive aha moment that made me feel just really compelled to try and help drive the future toward its inevitable outcome, which is, either to, well, it's toward its a potential healthy outcome, I would say.
Right. Right. Well, and so it was the combination of, meeting those folks in Silicon Valley, the notion of that book publishing, and then the work you had been doing with companies that led you to then make this more of an event and community platform. Is that how that took place?
Well, my ambition from the beginning was twofold. I guess the observation at the time was that the predominant narrative in the world at the time, and this was, in the early aughts, 2002 timeframe, was that business was the enemy of our future, and that NGOs and governments were really the ones that were going to solve all of the mounting environmental and social problems being generated by population growth and all of the unintended consequences of the growth in consumption globally. And I really believe that was a false mental model, and I wanted to change that. I really believe that there are as many good people inside businesses as in NGOs and government, and that business as an institution is really very well suited to innovate in a changing environment. And I really wanted to change that paradigm. I realized that there were a lot of mental model shifts that needed to happen in the business community. So I would say the conferences that we do are really a tool for enabling our ambition, which is to be a business transformation platform and really an economic system change platform. So we have a theory of change model that all of our products and services really are built around, which I can speak to if you think it's helpful for people.
Well, yeah. Why don't we actually talk a little bit about that, and then we can kind of get into the detail of it.
Sure. I think in general, we believe that the market drivers were such that, again, inevitably, either we're going to deplete the resources of our planet and kill it and us, or we were going to find new ways to drive economic value that decoupled our economic growth from the use of natural resources. But we knew that was something that, was only recognized by some of the technical people inside companies in the CSR seat or in the environmental health and safety seats, and we realized that we were going to have to ultimately engage the business drivers in companies to help them understand how innovation for environmental and social benefit could become a primary driver for growth and business value creation. And in order to do that, we needed to get people aware of the issues, market drivers, and challenges that we're facing, then get them engaged with the material and somewhat conversant or comfortable with the moving pieces, and then get them to commit to do something about it, and then ultimately to get them to co-create new ways of working and driving economic value through collaboration with peer companies as well as with other stakeholders in academia and government and NGOs and so forth. So this awareness, engagement, commitment, and co-creation theory of change is what's shaped our product strategy. And so we launched a publishing platform that was really, our ambition was to be the first place people discovered when they started to ask questions about sustainability in business. And then today we have about 2 million readers every year that are reading our digital publishing material. And then the conferences are an opportunity to get people together and get them engaged in the material, get them inspired and equipped to start doing something more about it. And then about probably 5 years into our journey as an organization, as we developed more of a maturing community, we started a corporate member peer-to-peer learning group network. And that group is made up of a group of about 80 global companies that are at the commit stage, at least, and are really believe that there is change afoot that they need to know how to grapple with. And they are working together to, with us to try and understand issues and opportunities and to work together at finding solutions. And now we're finally, after 12 years of being incorporated in the form that we are as a company, we're finding that there's a growing group of people who are really pressed and strongly motivated to accelerate change and are really willing to step up alongside their competitors and work on co-creative initiatives to help really drive system shift. So that's the the crazy design construct that we're working against.
No, that's great. That's great. And so and you mentioned earlier, I did study sustainable enterprise about 13 years ago when I was getting my business degree. And then I don't, I think it's safe to say there were a few marketers in the room in those classes, but a lot more of the corporate social responsibility types, general managers even, and some procurement focused folks. How how has your membership evolved? I mean, what brought me to sustainable brands was seeing CMOs, on your speaking agenda, so to speak.
Right. Well, that has been a journey with intention. We decided early on that we would have the most leverage if we really targeted trying to drive system shift primarily in consumer branded companies, because traditionally consumer branded companies really recognize, at least to some degree, the role they have in influencing the whole use of resource inside companies. I mean, we realize this is a culture change problem that needs to happen in parallel with an innovation effort. And so in order to, but you're right, marketers didn't have that mindset at all. And I mean, I like to say that Madison Avenue and our current problems were generated as a result of unintended consequence of some real success that Madison Avenue had in the last 100 years, driving productivity and not productivity, but economic prosperity, and that's a good thing. But as a result of our success on driving sales and consumption, at the same time, our work at driving productivity through siloed-based mechanistic ways of working, we've got ourselves in this problem of the day. So for us, we realized we were going to have to start the conversation with those CSR people, help them understand that they could be a more strategic asset to the company, help them understand that the company could generate a lot more revenue going forward and business value out of embedding environmental and social innovation into core of the business rather than keeping it stuck in a silo alongside. So we've been working at that strategy for a long time. And I think we found that, like you, early on, we attracted, because of the name of the company, interested people inside marketing who were more personally driven rather than driven by business mandate. So we developed a community of passionate people who really are inherently systems thinkers, who really kind of got the problem and really were inspired by the promise and wanted to try and work on it over time as a community, as we have worked this problem and developed a lot of maturity around how you drive success and a lot of examples of success. Then we've been able to drive more and more attention within the marketing community. And so today we have about 35% of our audience is coming out of brand strategy, marketing, communications. And our biggest partnership that we see as the most powerful that exists is in hand-holding between the chief sustainability officers and the CMOs of the world. And we're just in the process of starting to cement bridges between CMOs and CSOs in some of the companies that we've been working with for quite a long time, Procter Gamble being one example of that. So it's a really exciting moment.
That's great. That's great. One of the things I have a question about, I know you're gearing up for the Detroit conference this June, and probably by the time this podcast launches, you will you'll be past that. You'll be on to the next thing. But you host events all around the globe. You talked about getting peer groups together. You got like 80 companies in that corporate partner group. What are the goals for these events and the attendees that are coming? Just curious.
Specifically to inspire, engage, and equip. The events are really a time in the calendar where, a couple things. We want to have a platform where those people who really are signed up to drive whole business transformation around innovation for sustainability can bring business functions outside the sustainability seat or even the brand marketing seat. So we now have a really lovely cross-section of business attendees. In fact, the companies that have really adopted us as a meaningful change platform are bringing sometimes 10, 20, in some cases even 50 employees from their companies to our conferences to help accelerate the mental model shift inside their companies and give them a level language set and perspective from which to think about how to drive change inside their companies more broadly. And so it's getting them inspired, getting the conversation stretched as far as it can go based on what we know needs to happen without losing the confidence of our community that we really are committed to economic success as well as change, systems change, and then creating a platform that can be resonant for a number of different touch points in the company where people can find not only something relevant to their job and learn how their job is relevant to fielding a sustainable brand, but also where they can be stretched to understand how what they do fits into a larger whole.
Got it. Well, what do you see? I mean, you're working with all these types of companies, this huge community of folks. Mm-hmm. What do you feel are the biggest opportunities for brands in the sustainability area?
I might respond to that by talking about threats first.
Yeah, go for threats first, and we'll get
because I think it's really interesting. You mentioned Mark Pritchard, and I, in talking with you earlier, mentioned that I am working with the whole C-suite at Procter Gamble to help them along their business transformation journey. Mark actually drove two things for us. One is that he really spurred us to launch a new multi-brand initiative that is called Brands for Good, that is focused on bringing together a bunch of our brand community members together to collaborate on driving culture change. And so as part of that, he invited me to come to the ANA conference last year, American National Advertisers Conference. And, I went and kind of head slapped myself and asked myself why I hadn't been there before, because given our ambition. But what I heard there was really eye-opening, which was that the brand marketing community in general is both conscious that revenue growth is stagnating at 51% of the Fortune 500 companies, that brands are losing relevance because today's consumers are really looking for more meaning and purpose out of the businesses that they do, do business with, and that today's talent coming out of school is really not interested in marketing. They kind of see marketing as the carpetbag sales job of the 50s, and so they're struggling with talent, and they're being disrupted by inherently purpose embedded brands that are direct to consumer today, that are really, landing with today's consumers. So they're feeling the hurt, and the answer to, the opportunity is what we offer, which is to authentically and with real science-based technical understanding begin to go back to the original roots of what marketing was, which is to find a meaningful social or human issue, and today environmental issues are significant social and human issues, but to find meaningful challenges or problems and help solve them rather than manufactured problems to create new products to sell into, right? I mean, so it's really going back to the roots of marketing is the opportunity, and in doing so to become relevant again.
I've had a number of folks on this program from big names in the marketing world, at least. So Phil Kotler, who from Kellogg wrote the first marketing management textbook, to more recently Seth Godin, who's written lots and lots of books for marketers. And the interesting theme, and there's been others as well, but these two stick out in particular, is this notion of one, I think Kotler, with his economics training, kind of sees the flaws and the cracks in the capitalism society of produce more, and knowing that there's some flaws there that need to be fixed, and really trying to help, I think, managers now face that and try to figure out what to do about it. And then Seth, on the other hand, is talking about doing good with what you're doing, and getting back to that. And there's this notion that we've talked about on this podcast before, which is that a long time ago, if we can think of like when there weren't big companies, but there were communities being impacted by local retailers or local company, local producers. If you were a scumbag, people would alienate you and
Right.
stop buying from
Exactly.
you, right? And the power has shifted, obviously, towards the bigger and bigger conglomerates. But that feedback loop of whether or not our activities are virtuous
Right.
has
Have integrity.
has been lost.
Right.
And I think you're seeing, from the discussion now that we were having about marketers coming to the table, I think there's a recognition that feedback loop has been broken,
Yes.
and that consumers are already pushing against it. So I applaud you.
Well, I think the feedback loop had been broken, but the internet has changed that again, and the internet has been a big driver for sort of the comeuppance of companies that have fallen on being lazy or taking advantage of the opportunity to be less than virtuous, as you say.
Right.
Right.
Well, are there examples, either companies or brands that you point to that you say they're on the right path, or they're doing some interesting good things? Just curious.
Oh, so many at so many levels of scale. Yes. And I think that's what excites me about our community is you can drop in and just be overwhelmed in awe of the amount of innovation and exploration that's happening in our community. And it ranges from small startups who we still find a lot of inspiration from that are creating breakthrough business models for addressing real social problems. Companies like Airbnb and Tom's Shoes and Grace Bakery and True Colors, which is one we're showcasing this year, which is a company that was founded to solve a problem around gang violence in the community that it launched in, where it's now attracted the leadership of 3 different gangs in its community to run this beer brewing business, beer being just the vehicle for solving the social problem. And the result of it has been now that you have 3 gangs coming together, actually sharing a sense of ownership of this business and finding alternative ways to create a sense of meaning and place for the people that have been part of those gangs. Grace Bakery is a company that was founded on the objective of trying to find a great way for people coming out of the prison system to get back into society in a healthy and meaningful way. Airbnb obviously has done a lot to both reduce the environmental footprint that exists with having a lot of empty hotel rooms all over the world, and also has done a great job of helping us reconnect with different cultures and begin to build empathy with people different from us in different places. I'm sure the buy one, get one model is not lost on all of your people. It's kind of an old example, but there are just countless examples of new innovations, all of the shareable economy work that's going on. And then you now have big global companies that are starting to experiment at a large scale with brands that traditionally haven't been might be seen as more challenging to find something sexy and meaningful to adopt. Whether it's Tide's experimentation with driving productive product quality and outcomes in cold water washing, and the impact that has on CO2 emissions is a great example. Unilever's commitment to help reduce bacterial-borne diseases through hand washing programs that tie and connect to the impact that its Lifebuoy brand can have. The examples are almost endless.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I can see. Well, what advice, if you had, say, a room full of CMOs and they're maybe new to this, what advice would you give them?
Well, I'd say come check out our come check out our conversation, certainly, because I think there'll be a lot of eye opening, and I think my experience as I am increasingly connected with more CMOs today is that many of them have a lot of the kind of thought constructs rattling around in their head already. They're already kind of aware of many of the market drivers. They sense it out there or see it out there. They're feeling pressured by competition. They haven't necessarily connected the dots. And I also have seen that the orientation can be to jump on what seems to be a trend of the moment from an old mental model standpoint and miss the important part of recognizing that in today's world with the internet, feedback loop, as you pointed out, that you can't jump into this space without really understanding what needs to happen under the hood to ensure your integrity. So I think realizing that brand is first who you are, what you do, and how you do it, and then what promises you make to consumers. All those things have to stack up and line up in order to be believable is one thing. The other side of that, though, is that just like with the human relationships you have, consumers don't expect perfection out of the brands they work with. They expect authenticity and transparency. And I think one of the things that holds CMOs up a lot of times is they feel fearful that they don't know what they don't know. And so they either don't jump in, or they say, well, I'm going to wait until I get it 100% right, till I really talk about it or engage my customers. And we think that's a mistake. You'll hear this. I think you're coming to Detroit, to our conference in Detroit, I believe. I'm sure you'll hear this from many people, because one of the mantras that's going around today in our community is "Be bold, not perfect." The thing that's exciting that I've seen happen in the last 15 years I've been at this is that generally across the spectrum of stakeholders, including consumers, there is a rapidly increasing awareness of the challenges that we're facing and the real deep need we have to move quickly to solve them. And so there's a right playing field, and everybody's confused. And it's one of the things we're excited about this Brands for Good initiative that Mark has really championed us to launch, is that we think that one of the big problems, we don't think, but one of the things we've discovered in the research we've done of the general U.S. population is that consumers do want a different version of the good life than they were taught to aspire to in the last century. And instead of money and status, they're really looking for more balanced simplicity in their life and more meaningful connections to people and to the environment. And yet they don't really know how to go about taking the steps to change their behavior and to pursue that life. And they want help. They believe that brands care about them, but they don't see brands doing anything to help. And when we ask them what they think brands should do, they said they don't know. And so that's really what's underpinning this Brands for Good initiative, which is to say to our brand leaders, consumers are asking you for leadership now. They don't, we need to get past this last 50 years mindset of waiting for consumers to tell us what to do, and adopt the Steve Jobs model that says if consumers are telling you what to do, it's too late, right? So that's kind of a few things in a nutshell.
Right. No, that's great advice. Well, one of the things I love to do on this podcast is get to know the person behind the conversation. And I love asking this question, which is, is there an experience of your past that defines or makes up who you are today?
I think there are dozens. I am an interesting example of another, I think, trend of the moment, in that I didn't start sustainable brands until I was over 40. And the result of my starting this business is the result of 20 years of professional experience of various sorts, and also my childhood. So I think one thing is your life continues to inform your future stages. I mean, in my earlier life, I grew up in a really conservative, evangelical, Christian, Republican household that is really full of rich family values. And I moved to the Bay Area when I was right out of school, where I had the opportunity to be exposed to lots of other mindsets and mental models. And I have found and really believe that there are more core principles and values that connect us across the spectrum of our regional, political, religious affiliations than people really understand today. And so, one of the things that really drives me for sure is to sustainability is the fact that it is the one thing that connects us all together. And I feel like if we have any hope of building a future that is harmonious, it will be around that understanding that we all sink or swim together, and that it's not us or them, it's we going forward on a planet that's got 10 billion people living on it in a finite set of resources.
That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. What advice would you give your younger self?
I love this one too, because I have two sons that are 24 and 25, and I'm they're at that beautiful stage in life where they're beyond now the rebellious teenage years and now actually comfortably looking for mentorship. So I get to ask myself that question and share it with my sons. I think the thing I am telling them that I would have said to myself is to be bold sooner. I think a lot of times we have instincts about the things that we think are important in life, but we don't have confidence in those things until we get older and have enough validation. I wish that I had started earlier, although, I don't really, because I have had an absolutely fantastic set of experiences in life, but that would be one thing. I wish that I was 10 years younger now, because I'm really excited about where we are in the world and the impact that we can have at Sustainable Brands.
Gotcha. Well, what I think this might be my last question. What fuels you? What drives you? What keeps you going?
Creative tension. I think a lot of people who find themselves doing things at scale are driven by the vision that they have of what the future can or needs to look like and where it is now, and a sense of a clarity on the steps that need to take to get there. And, it's Peter Senge coined the term creative tension that I have played around with and really resonate with a lot for the last 20 plus years. So that's really it. I'm passionate about building a better world. I believe that it can happen. I see the ways that we can get there, and it keeps me up at night.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope listeners will check out Sustainable Brands, both the content as well as the events in the community.
I appreciate it, and I look forward to meeting you in person in Detroit. I hope you're going to be there.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Today was created and produced by me, with writing and editing by Kevin Greeley, social media support by Megan Woods, art and graphic design by Sarah Dell. If you're new to Marketing Today, please feel free to write us a review on iTunes or your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends and colleagues about the show.
I love to hear from listeners, and you can contact me at marketingtodaypodcast.com. There you'll also find complete show notes with links to anything we talk about on any episode. You can also search our archives.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today.